Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm finally going to be dropping a new part, or technically the full movie, to What If Naruto Had Slug Sage Mode. So if you guys have been waiting a lot of days for me to upload this, sorry about that, my bad. I've been working on other what ifs behind the scenes, which, trust me, I have a lot of what if movies in the background that I'm going to be dropping soon. So make sure you guys stay up to date with that. But with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, here's the timestamp for those of you that have already seen parts 1 and 2. And for those of you guys that haven't, well, you guys can just watch from this point. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, whether you've seen it or not, please do me a favor and leave a like on the video, seeing as it genuinely helps the video do so much better in the algorithm. And with views being down recently, it genuinely means the world. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy What If Naruto Was Raised by Tsunade. Alright, we begin our story with a young Naruto. I want to say maybe 6 years old, because what I'm thinking is going to be happening in this timeline is that after Hiruzen would see how Naruto is actually treated by the villagers, and he would start seeing that Naruto's development, his psyche, and well, I mean, everything else is being affected, I could actually see Hiruzen maybe trying to get Naruto to be maybe raised by somebody. And who better to raise the young Naruto than one of the legendary Sannin, Tsunade, who's actually the grandmother of Naruto in this timeline, because we're going to be going with the theory that Minato is the son of Dan and Tsunade. I know that I usually don't do this in my videos, but that's my headcanon, so we're going to be running with that. Anyways, Naruto as a little kid would end up finally meeting the legendary Tsane Tsunade once Hiruzen would send a letter to her and essentially tell her to come back because her grandchild is currently needing her to raise him. And so she would pretty much end up going back to the village, and obviously say that this was to actually happen in the original. She probably wouldn't return and would just kind of throw it off. But after a lot of convincing from Lady Shizune, she would end up finally being like, all right, fine, I'll go get the damn brat. So after a late night of gambling, Tsunade would finally end up making her way towards the Hidden Leaf Village, where she would bust into the Hokage room, saying, damn Hiruzen, making me come back just to take care of some brat. Why couldn't you do it? But as Hiruzen would be signing off some paperwork, he would hit his pipe looking to Tsunade saying, well, if it isn't my student Tsunade, I'm happy to see you. And while the circumstances might not be the best, to tell you the truth, being Hokage is a lot more tiresome than you would imagine. With all the paperwork and all the duties that I have to fulfill as a Kage, Tsunade would then cut him off and say, and the view time that you have to spend. He would start coughing and be like, and anyways, I don't have the time to take care of a young boy, but you've left the village and practically haven't really been doing much. I assume it won't be too much of a problem to let you train the boy up a bit, maybe just watch over him for a bit, get him out of the village. The villagers here, well, they're convinced that he's the demon fox, and the rumors spread like wildfire. He's no longer looked at as a boy, but a demon. They're hounding him, and Tsunade, I'm afraid that one of these days, one villager might get too rambunctious and might end up causing some real damage to the boy. Tsunade, hearing that, would end up saying, it's not my responsibility. If only Minato hadn't died that night. The room would go quiet, as Hiruzen would say, if only. I wouldn't be at this desk fulfilling my duties, Tsunade, but you know, sometimes we as shinobi have to do things we don't want to. Tsunade in this moment would look to Shizune saying, let's go get the boy. And as they would make their way outside, we would end up pretty much being greeted to a sight of snow. Naruto with a little scarf would be outside playing when he would end up noticing a small girl being bullied by a bunch of boys. Naruto would jump in and defend Hinata, causing her to start liking him like in the original, and it'd be in that moment that Tsunade, walking through the snow, would see the young Naruto having been pretty much beat up by the young bullies who had taken his, no, not his scarf, but like, who would pretty much beat him up and shove them into the snow, him being completely defenseless. Tsunade, looking to Naruto, would get down to eye level with him as she would say, really? You got beat up that badly, kid? Naruto, looking to Tsunade, would be like, what's it to you, huh? As she would pretty much go on to ask Naruto what exactly he was trying to do fighting against those kids. Naruto would say that they were bullying a little girl and he wasn't gonna allow that, believe it. She, hearing this, would kind of like look to Naruto and see the face of her younger brother. Seeing this, Tsunade for a split second would look away with a slight blush, as she would then look to the direction of Naruto and have a bit of a smile. Shizune, seeing this, would think, whoa, she never, as suddenly she would drag the boy up, telling him that he's coming with her. He would say, what? No, lady, let me go. Who are you? And Tsunade would say, I'm your grandmother, so let's go. He would say, grandmother? I don't care if you're my grandfather, let me go. As, she wouldn't do so, and pretty much ends up dragging off the young Naruto and taking him along to whatever miscellaneous adventure she gets off to. It'd be a lot of gambling and a whole lot of stuff that young Naruto probably shouldn't have seen. But hey, it sure as heck beats getting bullied, drinking spoiled milk, and having nothing but ramen noodles to eat, right? So, as Naruto would go on with his journey with Tsunade, I can see one thing happening. And this would essentially be that at the beginning, Tsunade would potentially find Naruto as a bit of a hindrance. She doesn't exactly like the fact that she has to deal with a little kid that she has to babysit. All the trips to the bathroom, all the times that he pretty much is up to no good because, it's a kid. She would get sick of it. But eventually, after Naruto would slowly start to calm down and accept that he's gonna be with Tsunade and Lady Shizune for a while, Naruto would start to slowly change, looking at Tsunade in a more grateful manner, understanding that he's with her when he could be alone in the village, never having someone that he could come home to and say, I'm home. So Naruto would start changing, the way that he acts would start shifting, and Tsunade, seeing this, would start realizing that the young annoying brat that she had started to, grow kind of fond of was starting to kind of mature. She would like that, and this would lead her to warming up to Naruto more and more as the days would pass on. This would eventually lead to a mini time skip in which Naruto, over the course of spending all this time with Tsunade, would have brought newfound joy to her life. He would literally go on to become the light that would lead Tsunade back to her senses. Before, she would used to spend her life drinking her sorrows away at everything that happened in the war, but now that she has Naruto in her life, she has to wake up to take care and train and educate this young boy that without her wouldn't really do much. So, with that being said, Tsunade and Naruto would eventually develop a super close relationship, with her serving as a grandmother figure, more like a mom actually, with Lady Shizune serving as a big sister role to Naruto. This would leave the young Naruto and Tsunade in a very good spot relationship-wise, as they would go on multiple adventures, visit multiple towns, and Naruto would eventually end up picking up on those gambling habits. Much like Hashirama would have put Tsunade onto that stuff, Tsunade would have put Naruto onto that. And after all this time of training and being with Tsunade, Naruto definitely goes on to pick up a few habits from her, with a couple of techniques from her as well. Naruto doesn't exactly have some phenomenal chakra control, so I'm not going to be saying that he becomes some sort of crazy medical healer or something like that, but instead, what Naruto does learn through his time with Tsunade would be not incredible chakra control, but good chakra control, right? We still have to contend with the fact that Naruto is the 9 tails Jinchuriki, and that's still going to be coming with a couple of downsides. One being that Kurama is still going to be impacting Naruto's chakra flow, so that's going to make things a lot more difficult. But having a mentor around who's actually there to show Naruto how to manipulate chakra, control it, and teach him every step of the way, much like Jiraiya would have, Naruto would go on to learn Gale Palm and Wind style jutsus, and how to pretty much channel his chakra in his feet to walk up trees, even walking on water, which would definitely be one of the most difficult things Naruto would ever have to do. That said, after all this time would pass, Naruto would end up finally returning to the village, turning the age of let's say 12 years old, considering that that's the time that Naruto would actually go on to become a genin. After Naruto hearing so many stories of what Tsunade was like back in the day, being a ninja and all those things, Naruto having Tsunade and Shizune in his life never would have grown up with the goal of, I'll become Hokage, believe it, just due to the fact that he doesn't need to fight for people to give him attention or respect him. Having Tsunade and Shizune would have people in his life that he doesn't have to do specific things in order to be an attention seeker. In this timeline, Naruto doesn't see a reason why he should become Hokage, but he does see a reason why he should become a shinobi, and an incredible one at that. Thinking about all the accolades that Tsunade would have had as a shinobi, Naruto would look at her as some sort of crazy legend. Mind you, he wouldn't ever say it out loud, calling her an old hag, but he is so impressed and enthralled with her abilities. He would even swear that he's going to become a better medical ninja than her, and that he would go on to become one of the best shinobis in the entire Leaf Village, cracking a joke about, who knows, maybe I might become Hokage one day. But Regardless, after some time would pass, Tsunade would finally, after spending so many years with Naruto, decide that maybe it's time for her to, go on her own and him to start his own journey as a man. So, taking him back to the village about 1 month before the actual Genin teams would be formed, Naruto would return with brand new drip, some Tsunade style type outfit with like the Tsunade color, maybe like a green outfit or something like that. As we would get a scene of Naruto, Tsunade, and Shizune, as well as the little pig, walking into Hiruzen's office, with Hiruzen looking at Naruto, seeing just how much the young boy had grown. He would go on to ask Naruto how he's been, to which Naruto would smile, saying, "I've been good, old man," and then pretty much asking him how about him. This would lead to a small little monologue section between the two of them, as finally Hiruzen would end up telling Hiruzen that she was done raising him. She would look at Naruto with a smile and kind of a sad expression as she would turn away, saying, "You can have the brat back." She would then walk out of the room with Naruto looking at Tsunade and saying that he'll see her soon. He would wave. Tsunade would have a couple of tears coming out of her eyes, sad that she won't be seeing him for a while, considering that at this point she had practically considered him her own son. But regardless, Naruto staying in the office with Hiruzen would then be told that he can pretty much just go back to his old home, that it had never changed from the day that he left it. So Naruto would do just that, entering his old apartment. As walking inside, there would be lots and lots of dust bunnies. Naruto would think, nothing changed, huh? As he would think, well, better start cleaning. He would then get all his cleaning supplies and pretty much end up cleaning the whole thing in a couple of days, considering the fact, no, not a couple of days, maybe 1 day, considering the fact that this Naruto has the shadow clone jutsu. So with 4 or 5 clones at his disposal, I really see no reason why Naruto wouldn't be able to clean the house up pretty quickly. Which, speaking of cleaning, I want you guys to answer a question for me. Are you guys doing some sort of chore, like cleaning a room or something like that, as you're listening to this video? Because I don't know about you guys, but whenever I listen to What Ifs, I love doing like chores and stuff like that. Not because I necessarily enjoy doing housework, but just because it makes you feel extra productive, that not only are you entertained at the moment, but you're also doing something. I don't know. For me, it just kind of gives me a bit of like that dopamine rush feeling. But anyways, if you made it this far into the video, do me a favor and leave a like, considering that I won't continue this series unless this video gets decent support. That said, let's get back into the story. So once Naruto's room would finally be cleaned, the next day would actually be Monday, and Naruto would be introduced as a new student by Iruka. Naruto making his way into the classroom after Iruka would say, "Welcome your new student, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto would walk in with long blonde hair, actually looking more like Minato in this timeline, with the whiskers and the blue eyes and stuff like that. As Hinata, noticing him, would say, "It's him." And as everybody else would watch Naruto, some people would start snickering, saying, "Hey, isn't that the demon fox?" They'd say, "I thought he died. Yeah, my mom told me that we'd finally gotten rid of him, but I guess not." People would be staring at Naruto, and as Naruto would be hearing all this, Naruto wouldn't be fazed. He would just walk to the back of the classroom knowing that that was probably going to happen. And sitting down, Naruto would just look to the direction of Iruka, wondering what being in a ninja academy was like. He was actually excited. As soon as class would start, Iruka would start asking questions, and Naruto, having been trained by Tsunade and given a lot of info that most normal students wouldn't know, would be able to actually answer a lot of these questions, being an incredibly smart and talented shinobi. Just because remember, Naruto has always been a prodigy, he just never really had any sensei to mentor him or guide him, and once he got one, he practically speed ran the entire series, going on to become one of the strongest characters in the verse. So safe to say, Naruto's incredibly strong. And when I mean incredibly strong, I mean like Tsunade, because there's no way that over the course of this time skip, Naruto didn't learn how to pack some chakra into each one of his punches. Naruto punched like an absolute bomb. Every single blow was similar to that of Sakura's after the time skip. So during that bell test and during her fight with Sasori, that's how strong Naruto's punches are. So it's insane. But anyways, I digress. Eventually a month would pass and Naruto would eventually assimilate into the classroom very well, making friends with Kiba and Choji, and eventually kind of leading everybody else to be like, oh, the demon fox is actually not so bad. Naruto wouldn't be annoying or even try to be the class clown. Sure, he'd make a couple of jokes here and there, but nothing that would make Iruka dislike him or anything like that. In fact, Naruto would actually find Naruto's jokes funny. Considering that all his life, Naruto had been with an adult, he had eventually learned how to crack some jokes that adults could find funny too. That said, eventually the time would come when Team 7 would be formed, and Naruto, much like in the original, would once again be placed onto Team 7, alongside Sakura and Sasuke. Eventually, a couple of hours would pass and Kakashi would walk into the building as he would be greeted to the team, this time with no prank from Naruto, just because I don't see this version of Naruto doing that. So, eventually they all give their introductions, and Naruto's would be pretty simple, saying that his dream is to become an incredible shinobi, just like Lady Tsunade. Kakashi, hearing that, would think, of course he does. I mean, he did spend multiple years with her. Sasuke would say that he wants to seek revenge after a certain someone. Sakura would go on to pretty much lay out a pipe dream about wanting to be with Tsunade. And so, after everybody would finally end up talking about their goals, Kakashi would tell them all to meet him at this location tomorrow for the bell test, going on to explain that they shouldn't eat anything. And Naruto, definitely having been told the tale of the bell test and how she had to try to take the bells from Hiruzen himself, Naruto would actually know the true nature of this test, that it's not about taking the bells from whoever this is, Kakashi, he knows all about him. He would think it's about teamwork. So the very next day, before Kakashi would arrive, Naruto would go up to Sasuke and say, "Hey Sasuke, can we talk for a moment?" Sasuke, looking to Naruto, would scoff before saying, "What is it, Naruto?" Naruto, turning to him, would go on to say that he knows how they can pass this test. Sasuke, looking to Naruto, would ask, "How's that exactly?" As Naruto would pretty much turn to Sakura, saying, "Hey, you could come too." She would come closer, and eventually Naruto would go on to explain, "Hey, you guys know how I wasn't here for a couple of years? Well, this is why." Sasuke would say, "Out with it already, Naruto." To which Naruto would say, "Dang, I will, jeez." He would then turn to him and say, "Alright, well look, the point of this test isn't actually to do what he's about to tell us we have to do. It's actually teamwork. Because there's no way that we're going to be able to get the bells once Kakashi Sensei comes. He's a Jonin and we're just Genin. So really, all they're wanting to see is if our team is willing to work together and make sacrifices for one another. That's why there's only going to be 2 bells." Sasuke, after hearing that, would look at Naruto, saying that that makes no sense. The whole point of this would be to show their ninja abilities. But a part of him would actually start to believe Naruto. The more that Kakashi would start to explain the rules, Sasuke would look at Naruto, then finally believing in what he said. He would nod at him, looking to Naruto, as Naruto would nod right back. And eventually, the second that Kakashi would go on to say begin, all 3 of them would end up hiding in the bushes. Naruto, turning to the direction of Sasuke, would go on to ask what the plan is. As Sasuke, turning to Naruto, would go on to say that Sakura is going to be the one to serve as a distraction. Meanwhile, Naruto and Sasuke can go in and attack Kakashi. Eventually, Sakura is going to jump back in, and they're going to try to attack him 3 at a time. They're pretty much going to be doing their best to get the bells, but to show that they can work in synchronization. So that's exactly what they would do, Sakura serving as bait, to which Kakashi would actually take it, knowing that they were planning something. He wanted to give them the opportunity to execute their plan. And the second that this would happen, Sasuke would come flying in with a fireball jutsu, to which Naruto would go on to enhance the pressure by using a wind-style wind bullet. This would end up increasing the size of the already massive fireball, with Kakashi seeing it, being stunned at the fact that they were able to create a combination attack already. He would dodge out of the way, and eventually Naruto would come rushing in with a scalpel. Naruto fighting like this due to the fact that he was raised by a mythical ninjutsu specialist, and Naruto definitely understands the anatomy of the body. Also, I really loved Kabuto's fighting style when he faced off against Tsunade, and I figured that this was probably the perfect opportunity to use Naruto, or not use Naruto, but have Naruto have this ability. That said, as Naruto would rush into the direction of Kakashi, Kakashi would narrowly dodge his attack, to which Sasuke would come in with a thunderous kick, obviously missing, which would shoot off a slight bit of wind pressure, and then Sakura would rush in, leaning her fist back, and she would say, "Cha!" throwing a punch which would be easily caught by Kakashi. Naruto, however, spinning backwards, would say, "Let her go!" channeling tons of chakra in his fist, as he would then smash at the ground, causing Kakashi to be thrown off by this, to which Sasuke, leaping off of Naruto's back, lunging up into the air once more, would shoot 3 fireball jutsus at Kakashi. With Kakashi stunned by this, as he would end up using the substitution jutsu, and Naruto being there would be like, "Damn it, he substituted." The team would then look around, as Naruto would see Kakashi right behind him, holding a kunai to his neck. He would then turn towards Sakura and Sasuke, asking them what they're gonna do now. To which Sasuke would reply, "Save him obviously," rushing in as Kakashi's grip on the kunai would grow tighter and closer to Naruto. He would stop moving for a moment, looking to Kakashi, asking him what he wants. With Kakashi saying, "It's not what I want, but what you're gonna give me," he would go on to hold 2 bells out in front of him, saying that he'll give them the 2 bells, so long as they abandon Naruto. And as Sasuke hears that, for a split second he would think, "That's perfect, I can become a genin." But then staring at the eyes of Naruto, who this entire time has been nothing but like cool with him, he would kind of feel bad. As gritting his teeth, he would say, "No way," and Kakashi would smile as he would say, "You pass." After this, Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura would be stunned, as Naruto in this moment would have actually been like forgetting everything. Like, he knew this was about teamwork, but when you're placed in the dead center of this, he kind of forgot all about that. In the moment, everything just turned into teamwork and trying to get the bells, and having the kunai placed on his neck definitely raised the stakes a bit. So when Naruto was let go and Kakashi began to explain that whoever abandons the mission is scum and whoever abandons their friends is worse than scum, the team would all start to understand the true purpose of this test, as Naruto would realize that this was a lot more interesting than he had thought. He would smile thinking about Tsunade, as he would then ask Kakashi what next, as he would go on to tell them that for now, they're becoming his genin, and they're gonna go up for celebration. So Naruto in this moment would say, oh, can I pick the spot? To which Kakashi would say, "Sure, I don't see why not." And Naruto saying, "Let's go to Ichiraku Ramen." He would turn to Sakura, seeing her, be like, "Yeah, sure." And Sasuke, who's like, "Whatever." To which Kakashi would say, "Ichiraku Ramen it is," smiling, placing his mask over his face, as the team would make their way exactly there, having an incredible meal together and finding more out about each other. With Naruto and Sasuke discovering that in terms of raw abilities, they're kind of matched up perfectly, considering that Naruto was a tanky healer fighter and Sasuke, or wannabe healer fighter, and Sasuke is a very incredibly fast shinobi who thinks on his feet and could probably avoid most of Naruto's attacks. So if the two of them were to actually fight, it would be a pretty entertaining battle. But regardless of that, after the team's little lunch would be over, they would finally go to Hiruzen's office, officially being made Team 7, as the entirety of the team would then go on E and D rank missions for a few weeks. After this would happen, Naruto would finally speak up to Hiruzen, saying, "Come on, old man, we gotta get some better missions than this, our talents are being wasted." Sasuke would agree with this notion, and as the team would be sitting there waiting for Hiruzen's response, a smile would creep up on his face, as he would turn to the team and say, "You want a difficult mission? Alright, fine. Bring him in." Suddenly, a very drunken man would walk into the room as he would slur his words, going, "Damn it, Hiruzen, what the heck are you thinking you're doing, giving me a bunch of kids for my mission? I paid good money for this." And as he would stare at the direction of Naruto and Sasuke, he would wonder if they're even going to be able to protect him, then seeing Kakashi, and finally being like, "Whatever." He would walk out, as Hiruzen would say he's sorry about that, but that's who they're going to be protecting, so they might as well be getting used to him. Naruto hearing that would jump up in excitement, going, "Finally! My first real mission! This is one step closer to being just like Tsunade." As he would celebrate with anticipation, and finally Kakashi would go on to explain to them everything that they're going to be needing, ranging from an extra set of clothes, some food, some shinobi items, and whatever else they would like to bring. He would tell them to pack lightly, considering that they're going to be going on a long trip. So the team would do just that and would meet Kakashi at the bridge for their first mission, as the team would go on to embark on the Land of the Waves arc. We immediately kick this arc off with Team 7 making their way to the Land of the Waves. On their way there, just like normally, the Demon Brothers would end up attacking the team, and in the midst of this attack, instead of Naruto hesitating even for a split second, Naruto, who had been around Tsunade, who has definitely seen his fair share of her knocking some dudes around who were trying to get a little too pervy with her, would definitely know a thing or two about having some specific type of men come up to them and try to start some stuff. So Naruto, having experienced moments in which he had already faltered before, in the face of a shinobi who he thinks is so powerful, only to watch Tsunade absolutely clobber them and also have him even spar with her, Naruto would not be scared of this at all, rushing in, charging to the direction of one of the brothers, knowing that Sasuke has his back. Naruto rushing in behind Sasuke, the both of them would be seen moving in tandem, as suddenly, from behind Sasuke, both of them would split off. leading to a really cool panel in which Naruto and Sasuke both land simultaneous attacks on each individual demon brothers, leading to both of them being instantly knocked out by the two Genin, greatly impressing their sensei Kakashi, who seeing the two boys in action would be stunned, noting that the two of them already possessed the abilities to take down two Chunin level ninjas. This would leave Kakashi to start wondering whether they would actually be ready to take the Chunin exams, but nonetheless, the team would continue on forward with their mission and making their way towards the direction of the Land of Waves. This is when we would finally get the Zabuza encounter, where I can see things start to shift very quickly. Because remember, Naruto and Sasuke in this timeline both possessed equally great amount of ninja skills, so when they would see their sensei get captured within the water prison, and we would get the very emotional scene in which Kakashi tells the group to run away, which, speaking of, what would have happened if the team had actually abandoned Kakashi? Have I never done that? But anyways, point being, after this would end up taking place, Naruto and Sasuke both seeing that they need to free their sensei somehow, would each individually decide to just take on the Zabuza clones. So Naruto, creating a couple clones of his own, would rush to the direction of Zabuza's clones as he would leap into the air and his clones would jump up knowing what's to come. Naruto would slam his fist on it as a massive hole would be left behind and the floor itself would start shaking. This would actually cause a bit of waves to start going crazy in the ocean, or sorry, lake that Zabuza had currently found himself in. As Zabuza, seeing the monstrous strength behind the kid, would think, what? Kakashi, seeing that, would think that that's just like Tsunade, and as Naruto would throw that punch, Sasuke would leap up into the air, weaving the hand signs for a great fireball jutsu as a massive amount of fire would rush at Zabuza, who, seeing this happen, would be absolutely stunned. Sasuke would be about 20 feet in the air at the moment, considering that he would have used the momentum of one of Naruto's clones to leap up into the air, all the while Naruto's clones jumping up would have handled all of the Zabuza clones. So 5 entire water clones would be taken out, all the while Zabuza would be forced to let go of Kakashi and actually stop walking on water, sinking into it, which would actually lead him to going underneath the actual surface of the water and then avoiding the fire style. But this would ultimately end up giving Kakashi just enough time to actually get out of the way and make his way to the direction of his two students. Doing so extremely quickly, appearing behind the both of them, he would go on to thank them, as he would ask Naruto where the heck he learned to punch like that, and Sasuke, wondering, yeah, where did you learn how to hit like that, would wait for the answer. But Zabuza, coming out of the lake pissed, holding his blade with veins practically popping out of his head, would turn to Naruto, telling him that he's gonna kill him and that stupid Uchiha brat. As Zabuza would release a monstrous amount of killer intent, actually freezing the both of them, with him aiming his blade at their direction, but all too quickly, 2 Senbon would fly at the neck of Zabuza, as it would be Haku intervening, knowing that if Zabuza was to undergo a 3v1 in this moment, his likelihood of surviving would practically be 0%, if not maybe 3. But regardless, Haku would end up saving Zabuza in this moment, not allowing Zabuza's rage to be his undoing, as he would appear in front of the group going on to say, I apologize for intervening in your fight, but I'm a mistracking ninja. He would then go on to tell the group that he's going to be taking Zabuza now, and very quickly, he would disappear with the body. Naruto, looking to Kakashi, would wonder why he didn't perform his duty right then and there, and Kakashi would say, you noticed too, didn't you? To which Naruto would say he did. Kakashi would go on to tell them that they're going to be needing to keep their guards up, that this battle isn't over. But as he would say that, Kakashi would start to slightly fall over as he would look at his team, telling them that he had wasted a lot of chakra with his Sharingan. So, covering it back up, he would limp his way towards Tazuna's home, where all of them would stab the same experiences that we do in the original. Well, minus the tree walking stuff, because remember, in this timeline, Naruto actually already knows how to do that thanks to Tsunade, and because he already knows how to do that, him and Sakura would both actually teach Sasuke how to do things. So, having the advice of both Naruto and Sakura, and Naruto practically showing Sasuke exactly how to implement the ability, and be better at explaining it, just due to the fact that he had such a hard time doing it that it would just be easier for somebody that didn't get the catch of it quickly to explain it to you. Sasuke would go on to learn in like 3 hours, impressing the team due to the fact that that is an incredible amount of time to actually learn this jutsu. Sakura just learned it because she has some insane chakra control for her age, but Sasuke having the insane chakra pool that he also has and learning this ability was awesome. So after this would be all said and done, the team would go on to work on a couple combination attacks, with Sasuke asking Naruto how exactly he pulls off those monstrous punches. Naruto would go on to explain that while he was a kid and he left the village, he had actually went to go train with Lady Tsunade. Sasuke hearing that would say, "What, you trained with one of the legendary Sannin?" And Naruto turns to him and says, "I don't know if I would say trained, more like raised, because when I turned 6 years old, rumors of the Nine Tails started spreading like wildfire, and well, Hiruzen didn't think I was safe, so he sent me off with Tsunade for a couple of years, and here I am now." Sasuke would ask what exactly she taught him. Naruto would say that she tried teaching him a lot of things, but because of his age and the fact that he struggled a lot with chakra control, the main things that he ended up learning from her were basic taijutsu, some human anatomy that he would have learned via studying some books, which Naruto cringes at the thought of, knowing that it definitely helped him a lot because of the fact that now he's a lot smarter. And he would also explain that she taught him how to charge chakra into his fists and release these massive punches. Sasuke hearing this would be impressed, as he would ask Naruto how to do it actually. Naruto turning to Sasuke would say that that is actually something that Tsunade could teach him, because as much as he can do it, it's kind of one of those things where Naruto knows what a word means, but if he tried to explain it, he wouldn't be able to actually give the definition. So he'd be a pretty bad teacher. Though Sasuke would insist to have him teach him something, and Naruto would begin to actually try to teach him the basics. But when Naruto's teachings would be way worse than what Naruto had even led on to believe, Sasuke would be like, "You know what, you're right. Maybe I'll just learn from Tsunade one day." Naruto would say, "Hey, maybe I could put in a good word for you and you can train with her as well." And Sasuke would be like, "Yeah, sure, Naruto." Regardless though, the team would continue their training, doing hand-to-hand training and sparring, with Naruto realizing that when it comes to hand-to-hand combat itself, Naruto at the moment is actually besting Sasuke due to the fact that he still hasn't awakened his Sharingan. So Sasuke, realizing that Naruto's actually the stronger of the two, would have respect but also a hint of jealousy, thinking to himself that if he had the same training access that Naruto had, he'd be so much stronger. But then again, he has to admit that Naruto at the moment just blatantly got the best of him. So after this would happen, we would eventually end up getting a day in which Naruto would spend a significant amount training after hours in the forest, eventually tiring himself out so badly that by the time that he returned back to Tazuna's house and passed out, the day of the Battle of the Bridge would finally come around and Naruto still would have been sleeping, as he would ultimately be woken up by the two shinobi making a huge ruckus, causing Inari and Tsunami to fight back. But when it didn't work and Naruto noticed that they were in the house, Naruto instantly started the battle off by smashing at the ground of their house and then lifting the tiles themselves up, causing them to be off balance, as Naruto would rush in towards their directions with two scalpels, cutting the both of them on their tendons on their calves. This would cause each of them not to be able to stand up properly, as the two fodder shinobi turning to Naruto trying to weave hand signs for something would actually kind of start stumbling, holding on to each other, as one of them would draw a blade saying, "Kid, you made a huge mistake." But Naruto would point his finger behind him, as from behind Naruto would come another two clones. And so, jumping at the direction of each one of the brothers, they would each hit them right on the head with their monstrous strength, shaking the inside of their brains and causing them to ultimately have blood come pouring out of their nose, ears, and mouth. Naruto doing so would then start doing stretches, like the morning stretches, where you're like, you're trying to wake your body up, as he looks at Inari and Tsunami and is just like, "Guess it was a good thing I overslept." He would then start to crack his knuckles and neck and ask if they have maybe some water he could drink, saying he's really thirsty. Inari would go on to point his finger towards a cup of tea that they have nearby, and Naruto's like, "Oh, perfect." Naruto serves himself up a glass of cold tea, and this dude just proceeds to make his way towards the battlefield, knowing that if these guys were here, then something definitely definitely must have been going on over there. But Naruto would be a bit disappointed considering that a part of him believes that this battle might even be over by the time he gets there, considering Sasuke is there and Kakashi's there. And you know, Sakura's there for moral support. She's still not exactly becoming the shinobi she should be, but you know, he'll let it slide. Anyways though, when Naruto would arrive to the battlefield, he would be greeted to the sight of Sasuke inside of the mirrors. As Naruto seeing this, knowing that his friend shouldn't just be trapped in there having awakened his Sharingan, Naruto would rush at the direction of one of the mirrors, reeling his arm back and shattering it to a million little pieces. Sasuke in this moment, seeing the gap created by Naruto, would say, "Great," as multiple Senbons would come flying at Sasuke, who was about to make his big exit, having a hole created for him by Naruto, who in this timeline wouldn't have been like, oh, let me rush in the actual trap itself. No, he would have helped Sasuke. But Haku, seeing this and knowing that if he didn't put a stop to this right now, he was going to have to fight a 2v1, would throw multiple Senbon at Sasuke, which all hit him and ultimately paralyze him. He would fall down to the ground as Naruto and Sasuke's eyes would lock, and as Naruto would see Sasuke fall to the ground and him kind of breathing his final breaths, Naruto's eyes would turn red. In an instant, Naruto would let out an animalistic roar, blitzing at Haku, who was within one of the mirrors, and ultimately smashing his fist straight through his face. This would shatter Haku's mask as his nose would be completely broken, having a bunch of blood spurt out of it, but Naruto, rushing towards him once more, never having encountered Haku before, would proceed to stab his arm full of chakra straight through Haku's torso, which would proceed to leave a hole straight through the ninja. Haku, now staring at Naruto, looking deep into his eyes, would just kind of leave out his last breath before then turning and seeing the body of Zabuza being impaled by a Chidori. Knowing that at this moment he couldn't do a thing about it, would attempt to use his Kekkei Genkai to freeze Naruto, but it wouldn't be working at all. Naruto's arm would be looking like it's covered in a bit of frostbite, but the Nine Tails' chakra would be healing it so rapidly that it didn't affect him. And as Haku would draw his last breath, he would apologize to Zabuza, going, "Sorry, master," as he would fall down to the ground, and Naruto would once again let out a massive roar. This would be when suddenly Gato and his men would arrive, and it'd be in this moment that Naruto, knowing that he's responsible for all these countless deaths, would lunge past the direction of Kakashi and begin mauling these men of Gato. Throwing a punch at one of them, this would send like 20 men flying off into the actual river, some of them being unconscious as the humans would be ragdolled everywhere, as Naruto, rushing to the direction of Gato himself before he could finally land the final blow, Naruto's body would fall unconscious right in the middle of all of them. As the surviving men staring at the body of Naruto who had fallen unconscious would aim their blades towards him, but then getting PTSD flashbacks of what he did when he was conscious, would not be able to get any closer or try to harm Naruto. It'd be at this point that Kakashi, using his superior speed, would blitz in between Gato and Naruto and would go on to ask him politely to come with him. This is when Gato would make like a really scared face expression as he would say, "Men, attack him." But seeing Kakashi standing there, all of them would kind of realize that if this guy is his student, just how much more scary is this dude? So they would all back off and just decide, nah, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth my life. As they all pretty much leave Gato by himself, and the dude proceeds to get what's coming to him by the villagers. After this would take place, the team would finally end up grabbing their things and making their way back to Konoha, as they would all return and report everything that would have happened to Hiruzen, with Sasuke, of course, having woken up thanks to the Senbon not having killed him and nearly doing so but not killed him in this timeline. He'd be out of commission for about a week once they returned back to Konoha, and so by the time that the Chunin exams would finally roll around, Sasuke would be more than ready to participate in them. So with that being said, what would take place after this is we would get the team all being told about the Chunin exams, with a really injured Sasuke who has like a bunch of casts on his body, pretty much saying that he's willing to accept. Kakashi, looking to Sasuke and seeing the state of his body, would be like, "Yeah, sure, buddy." As the team would all prepare for this, and we would eventually end up getting the scene in the actual anime in which Naruto and Sasuke would both be walking through the Chunin Tower. As they're doing this version of Naruto would actually be able to recognize Genjutsu, so seeing the low-level Genjutsu being used on them, Naruto would scoff thinking, did they really think that would work on us? To which Sakura, who hadn't even noticed it, would be like, what? This was Genjutsu? The two would eventually make their way to the actual room when suddenly a boy with bushy brows would throw a kick at Sasuke, having been called the Rookie of the Year in this timeline, as he would challenge him to a fight. Not only that, but also trying to get at his girl right in front of him, to which Sasuke, smirking, would go on to tell him that he doesn't have the time for small fry like him. Suddenly, he would go on to pretty much try to actually attack him, not caring about what Sasuke said, but who other than Naruto would stand in front of him, not dodging the kick, but actually taking the full force of the kick. He would be sent backwards as he would land on the ground holding his cheek, going on to tell Lee, didn't you hear him the first time? He doesn't want to fight. He would look at Lee with a pissed off expression as Lee would bow down his head, apologizing for kicking him and looking at Sasuke, telling him that sooner or later they're going to fight. As he would end up leaving, and Sasuke, seeing that Naruto had just taken that blow for him, would ask him why in the world he would do something that stupid. But Naruto, looking at Sasuke, would only start smiling goofily as he would say that he'd do it again. Sasuke, hearing that, would just be like, whatever, as he would make his way towards the direction of the examination area, with the team all meeting up with the Rookie 12 and all pretty much being glared at by all of the different shinobi that were there. Eventually, everybody would make their way to the testing proc section, and because I don't feel like covering that, we're going to be skipping straight to the Forest of Death section, which is where the team would all decide on who their team captain's going to be. This is when Sasuke, making a pretty strange move, would actually go on to turn to Naruto, asking him what he thinks they should do. Naruto, turning to Sasuke, would be like, does that mean I'm the captain? And Sasuke would say, sure, I'll let you have it for today. Naruto, smiling at Sasuke, would end up pretty much saying that their best bet would probably be to go to the center of the exam and hopefully take the scroll from a team that's already pretty much passed, saying that regardless of what person it is, because they're heading there, they should have either an Earth or a Heaven scroll. So Sasuke, hearing that, would agree, saying that his plan was going to be the same, as Naruto and Sasuke both look at each other, nod, and then Sakura would look at them and be like, sure, yeah, let's do that. Which would ultimately lead us to a situation in which the team rushing to the direction of the center of the actual exam would not be met by anybody at all, until suddenly Naruto's hairs on the back of his head would start to stand up on its end, as Naruto, facing to the direction of a massive chakra signature, would say, wait. All three of them would stop on a tree branch, as suddenly, on the tree right next to them, a woman would be standing there, long hair with a strange straw hat. As they would turn, asking what she wants, Naruto pretty much willing to just give up the scroll instantly, knowing that whoever this is easily on the same level of Lady Tsunade, if not greater, because the chakra that he's sensing is not only massive, but malicious. This is when Naruto, hearing the answer from the shinobi saying she's only here to take the scroll, Naruto would say, then what scroll do you need? We'll give it right now. But she would go on to say, don't make it so easy now, as she would pretty much start to release her bloodlust, and as Sasuke would look at Naruto wondering why he's doing so much, all of a sudden, he would feel it. The massive amount of bloodlust rushing towards their direction would cause Sasuke to freeze in place, turning to Naruto as their eyes would lock with fear in their eyes, and they would all stare attentively at the ninja. He would stare directly at Sasuke, which Naruto, seeing this, knowing that he's maybe after Sasuke, would actually say, if you're here for my teammate, then we can't do business. But if you take the scroll right now, then neither of us has to get hurt. Orochimaru, hearing that, would say, that's an enticing offer. However, you're not exactly in a position to be bargaining with me, as he would lunge to the direction of the team, and Naruto would say, get down, Sasuke! Suddenly, Sasuke would do exactly that, and Naruto, rushing at the direction of Orochimaru, would try to attack, though his legs were shaking. This is when Naruto, trying to stab at Orochimaru with one of his scalpels, would miss completely, with Orochimaru holding Naruto's forearm and looking at his face. He would lick at Naruto's cheek, as he would go on to say that he's strong, but not strong enough. He would then kick Naruto square in the stomach, sending him crashing to the ground about 20 feet. as Naruto, looking up to the direction of the tree, would get pissed, slamming his fist on his ground, sending out the biggest amount of strength that he could muster, draining like 30% of his chakra in that one punch, would cause the tree to pretty much be uprooted as the entire area would shatter, looking like a practical nuke had just gone off. Orochimaru, witnessing the strength that had just taken place, would think, Tsunade. He would realize that Naruto must have been trained by her, considering the fact that he was able to use that blow and the colors that he was using. It was no mistake. This boy had clearly been taught a thing or two by Tsunade. So, Orochimaru, knowing that, would rush to Naruto as he would go on to ask just how much Tsunade taught him. It'd be in this moment that he would smile and some of his face would start to melt off, with some of the purple makeup or whatever it is that Orochimaru uses on his face having been shown, and Naruto, seeing the slit-like eyes, would say, You're Orochimaru. Alright, if you guys are seeing this video, I probably ended up recording the entire movie to this video in one day. So, as a thank you to me and to help the video do a lot better in the algorithm, just considering how the algorithm has been doing me lately, with like views practically being null, then it'd genuinely mean the world to me if you guys could go down, leave a like, leave a comment, and do all that usual good YouTube stuff. But anyways, to continue off the story where we had left off, Naruto, finding himself in front of the terror that is Orochimaru, would start to have his mind begin to race. He would start to have thoughts of inadequacy, thinking to himself that there's no way he could compete with the legendary Sannin. Every time that he had sparred against Lady Tsunade, she would absolutely clobber him, and that wasn't even her going all out. Now just imagine going up against the Snake Sage, the one member that Tsunade said was absolutely terrifying. And as Naruto would stare at Orochimaru, feeling his presence and chakra, Naruto would start to feel his legs begin to buckle. But as he would stare at the eyes of Orochimaru locking on to Sasuke, him licking his lips, Naruto realizing that unless he takes a stand right now, Sasuke can most likely get extremely injured right now, Naruto would stand back up, strengthening himself as his eyes would shift, awakening the power of the Nine Tails. One tail would grow behind his back as rage would overfill Naruto, and he would think, if it means Sasuke will be safe, well then screw all reason. He would then rush in towards the direction of Orochimaru in an animalistic fashion, Nine Tails mode completely taking over him, which becomes a good and bad thing, considering that when he's under the control of the Nine Tails or under its influence, Naruto starts lacking the way that he normally fights. Instead, he changes it out for a more animalistic approach. So even though his speed and strength, or speed technically would be the only attribute increased, and animalistic and the dangerousness of his blows and stuff would have increased, Orochimaru would just be a terrible matchup for Naruto. He would evade and dodge all of his blows, as the battle would end up pretty much leading to Orochimaru destroying him. He would corner Naruto, eventually using the 5-pronged finger seal on him, as he would leave the unconscious Naruto on the ground passing out. Naruto's final thought would be, no, but he just falls unconscious. Suddenly, Naruto would start fading in and out, as the last thing he would see would be Orochimaru's outstretched neck as it would bite onto Sasuke, who would try his best to take on Orochimaru, but it just wasn't working. There was just no way that it was gonna happen. So Naruto watches his allies fall, and after this would take place, we would then end up getting the Sound Genin section of the story, which is Sakura trying to protect the two of them, and eventually Sasuke coming out with the power of the curse mark would absolutely destroy all of those members. After doing this, the team would once again find themselves in the Chunin Exams 1v1s, and with that being the case, we would get a battle which is much different than in the original for Naruto and Kiba. I can see this battle going one of two ways. Either Naruto would allow Kiba to, try something against him just to test out the waters, or Naruto would use Tsunade's patented, throwing their opponents off guard. And that's exactly what I could see Naruto doing. Charging his fist up for the moment that the proctor would say begin, Naruto would watch on as Kiba and Akamaru would rush towards him. Running on the ground, Naruto would slam his fist to it, as he would begin to create tremors, and the ground from underneath Kiba would shake. This would lift up into the air, leading Kiba and Akamaru to be off their balance, as Naruto, quickly thinking smartly, would create 10 shadow clones, which all leaping up into the air would begin to charge up a wind style jutsu, each one of them. Suddenly, a massive wind attack would go throughout the entire arena as people would feel their hair start blowing in the wind, people's hats would go flying off glasses and stuff. Meanwhile, Kiba in the center of all this would have taken heavy damage, falling unconscious, with Akamaru taking the brunt force of this as well. Naruto, seeing that his attack had worked, would have a smile on his face as he would think that he's been getting better. It's at this point that Naruto, making his way to the stands, would then have Hinata offer him an ointment for the battle. Naruto would smile, taking it, knowing that this definitely isn't just like a friendly gesture. He would give her a big bright smile saying thank you, knowing that she probably has feelings for him, and Naruto can admit she's kinda cute. So he would walk off and look at Hinata, giving her a smile once more. This is when all of a sudden Naruto would then bear witness to the Hinata and Neji fight, and once he sees the way that Neji would treat Hinata, oh, he gets pissed. This would lead to the same altercation in the original, with Naruto challenging Neji and telling him that he's gonna absolutely clobber him, which would then lead us to the 1 month of training, where everything would kind of go similarly to the original. I mean, Naruto would probably try to get training from Kakashi. Kakashi training Sasuke denies him and then ends up pretty much like giving him the runaround, leading him to that one Ibusu sensei or whatever who tries to train Naruto. But after Naruto hits the dude with this, he'd still have the sexy jutsu for sure. He hits him with the sexy jutsu and defeats him. Naruto eventually would meet Jiraiya. And it's at this point that Naruto, meeting the legendary Sage Toad, would actually look towards it, or Toad Sage, yeah, that's the way it goes, would actually end up personally requesting for Jiraiya to train him. Jiraiya would be like, come on kid, I don't know, you really think I have time to train a brat like you? I'm in the middle of doing research. Naruto would tell him that if he doesn't agree to train him, then he'll tell Tsunade he did it. And Jiraiya, hearing that, would be like, what? Tsunade? How do you know her, brat? Naruto would turn towards Jiraiya, saying that she raised him, and once Jiraiya catches wind of that, his tune completely shifts. He's like, interesting. What exactly has Tsunade taught you? From this point forth, Naruto would begin to show Jiraiya everything that he's learned, and Jiraiya, turning to Naruto, would say that he's impressive for his age, but to think that that's all that he managed to learn from Tsunade in that limited amount of time, he would think that Tsunade could have done better. She should have done more with him, taken more risks, but I guess he understands. Anyways, he would then go on to tell Naruto what area he thinks he's lacking in the most. Naruto would say that he's lacking in being able to be the strongest ninja. He would go on to explain to Jiraiya what that encounter against Orochimaru had taught him and how helpless he felt. He couldn't defend anybody, and if he ever has to go up against a ninja that powerful again, he's afraid he won't make it out alive next time. Jiraiya, hearing that, turning to Naruto, realizing that he had had an encounter with Orochimaru, would start to wonder if this kid is secretly linked to them all somehow, because now he's trained under Tsunade, he's gonna train with him, and he's also fought Orochimaru. Jiraiya would think that it's a bit strange, but ultimately, he would tell Naruto that the best thing they can train for now to give him more power would probably be the abilities of the Nine Tails. Naruto would tell him that that's dangerous, that he doesn't think that that's smart, but Jiraiya would say that with him around, it's gonna be pretty easy. He would also tell him he has one more thing he could show him: Toad summoning. This is when Naruto would go on to pretty much turn to Jiraiya and tell him that unfortunately he actually already has a summoning contract. He would end up summoning a giant slug, shocking Jiraiya, who, seeing this, would be like, what? You can already summon Katsuya? Naruto would say that yeah, he can, because Tsunade had taught him how to properly use his chakra. However, it does drain him significantly. Jiraiya, being stunned at this, would tell him that if that's the case, then all he can really train him in is the power of the Nine Tails. He would say hi to Katsuya, and then he would go on to pretty much grab Naruto and drag him towards an abyss, a cliff type section. Once there, Jiraiya would tell Naruto to look down and tell him what he thinks. This is when the dude would toss Naruto in there, and this would pretty much just begin Naruto's Nine Tails training, which would obviously be a success and would lead Naruto this time around, because he has greater chakra control and has a little bit more of a oomph on his, mental state. Like, he's able to control himself a lot better, a little bit more mature. I'm gonna be saying that Naruto's gonna be having the capability of actually being able to control his One Tail state at this point. So after the training would finally be over, we would now get the fight between Naruto and Neji. And as soon as the battle would begin, Naruto would be planning to do the same thing he did to Kiba, but Neji, knowing that that's probably his strategy, as Naruto was lifting his fist about to smash the arena, giving himself a huge advantage against Neji, who's a close range fighter, Neji would close the distance, having worked on speed that entire time. And once doing this, he would proceed to do the 64 palm trigram move on Naruto, shutting down each and every single one of his chakra paths, leaving Naruto on the ground as he would cough out a bit of blood. This is when Neji, standing over him, confident as ever, would pretty much proclaim himself the victor. But Naruto would then proceed to smile as chakra would begin enveloping the entire arena. An orange, ominous vibe would overwhelm Neji, and as Neji would stare on, Naruto's speed and strength would be so unbelievably uncomparable to him that Naruto, in one swift motion, uppercutting Neji without the strength of Tsunade, because he might straight up blow his head off, would proceed to knock him out of the entire arena. He would fly up into the air so high and then crash on the ground. However, before he could completely thud with it, we would have Might Guy catching his student, looking to Neji, turning to Naruto, and giving him a thumbs up. He would then take Neji to the infirmary, and as Naruto would watch on as Neji would have been completely destroyed, Naruto would deactivate the power of the Nine Tails, with him then pretty much feeling his entire body gets extremely sore afterwards, and then going toward the direction of Sakura. She would ask Naruto what exactly he trained on during that month, and he would say that it was exactly that, what she saw, working on the Nine Tails. He then asked her what she did, and she says that she was actually working on Genjutsu with Kurenai, which, speaking of, was actually suggested to me by somebody in the comments down below, so shout out to you, bro. But anyways, moving on, after this would happen, we would then get the grand finale, which would consist of Gaara versus Sasuke. And it would be at this point that the story would kind of start falling into place like the original one. The dominoes all start to pretty much go back into place, and we would get the same stuff happening. Sasuke Chidori, Gaara's Sand Dome defense, and ultimately Gaara rushing out into the forest and the battle continuing there. This would lead Naruto to chasing after him and eventually finding himself face to face with Sasuke and Gaara. This is where I can see one of two things happening. Naruto seeing the clash between Sasuke and Gaara about to take place, Naruto would slam his Nine Tails empowered fist onto the ground as a massive earthquake and crater would be formed between the both of them. Gaara would fall into it, as well as Sasuke, and as Naruto would see that happen, using his speed, jumping from the falling boulders and trees, would end up catching Sasuke and making their way back to the land. Sasuke would probably grit his teeth going, "Let me go, Naruto, this is my fight!" But Naruto, saving Sasuke, would look downwards into the abyss that he had created. However, this is when a gigantic sand hand would come out and begin dragging itself from the abyss. Naruto seeing this would be absolutely flabbergasted, and Sasuke, watching this on as well, would ask Naruto what now, to which Naruto would say that they'll figure that out later. It'd be at this point that the battle would actually change a bit, with Naruto and Sasuke both kind of fighting against Shukaku, with Naruto summoning Katsuya and Sasuke being stunned that Naruto has the chakra to not only launch an attack like that managed to create a crater in the ground, which is just ludicrous, but he even has the chakra remaining to summon a massive summoning. Sasuke would think that Naruto is evolving way too fast, and as he would grit his teeth, looking at Naruto, who was currently weaving hand signs for shadow clones, 100 clones would come in out of nowhere that would all attempt to clobber Gaara, waking him up. However, all of them would be destroyed, and Naruto, turning to Sasuke, would say, "Sasuke, now!" This is when Sasuke would say, "Don't order me around," leaping to Gaara and landing a Chidori on him. This would ultimately end up knocking Gaara back into consciousness, and after this would take place, Gaara would end up having his moment with Naruto, where I could see him still giving him the Talk no Jutsu treatment. So once that would be over, the entirety of Konoha would start to feel the repercussions of this, with the biggest one being the fact that they just lost their Hokage. So this would now lead us to the Tsunade retrieval arc, which is going to be something that Naruto is extremely excited about, because it has been literal months since the last time that he had seen Tsunade, and he has so much to tell her. Sure, he's been getting letters from Lady Shizune every now and then saying how Tsunade's been doing, but other than that, he hasn't exactly talked to her in a while. She said she wasn't going to be making any contact with him until he became a splendid shinobi, and even though maybe he hasn't fully accomplished that, Naruto just can't say no to going with Jiraiya and finding Tsunade once more. So thanks to his connection with Tsunade, this would probably not only make the arc a little bit different, but go a lot more faster, considering that Naruto would be more likely to understand what her patterns would be and what places she would be likely to visit. Obviously, Tsunade has never dropped her gambling addiction, but it's just less bad as it was in the original. So this would mean that they're way more likely to find there way sooner than in canon. So this would mean that this would probably happen even before Orochimaru's encounter with Tsunade and their deal in order to give him his usage of his arms back in exchange for her brother and her old lover being resurrected. We would instead end up having Orochimaru arriving possibly on the same day that Tsunade and Naruto would arrive to see Tsunade. This would lead us to an encounter out in plain fields as Tsunade and Shizune would be on their way to another town. We would get Naruto arriving there way before them, as Naruto would yell out, "Tsunade!" or no, "Granny! Granny!" Tsunade turning around to see Naruto would say, "Naruto?" As seeing him, out of the corner of her eye, a smile would appear as she wants to embrace the kid, but a part of her knows that she needs to be tough on him. So, raising her fist, she would clobber the kid, saying, "What are you doing here, Naruto? Didn't I tell you to come meet me once you were a splendid shinobi?" But Naruto holding his head would smile, saying that he missed her too. As Tsunade would have a slight blush on her face and smile, and then she would see Jiraiya. She would say, "What's he doing here?" To which Jiraiya would say, "How you doing, Tsunade?" This is when Naruto would start to pretty much start yapping to Tsunade, telling her everything about his journey, the Land of the Waves mission, going on to Team 7, meeting Kakashi, defeating Gaara, going into the Chunin Exams, and defeating a Hyuga clan member. Tsunade, hearing all this, would be impressed at Naruto's capabilities. He would even go on to include that he even fought against Orochimaru, and he nearly died. The second Tsunade hears this, she would be pissed, knowing that Orochimaru definitely should not have taken it that far. But this is when Jiraiya would cut him off and would most likely begin to ruffle up his hair, telling Naruto that it's about time the adults would talk. He would then look to Tsunade as he would say that she's changed so much. He would say that she looks more vibrant than the last time he's seen her, and that he guesses that's because of Naruto. Tsunade would shrug, saying that maybe that's the case, with Naruto knowing that it definitely is. Ever since he came into her life, it's almost like a light had shined in it. But regardless, Jiraiya would finally get to the point and begin explaining what happened in the village, how Orochimaru killed Hiruzen in a battle, however he sealed his arms, and how the village is in dire need of a new Kage. He would then go on to tell him that Hiruzen himself had wished she would take up the mantle, and he would ask her if she's willing to accept this and return to the village. Naruto, watching on wide-eyed to see what her reaction would be, would stare at Tsunade as she would say, But before this could happen, Orochimaru would arrive onto the scene, as he would stare at Jiraiya and Tsunade, saying, well, if it isn't you two, it's been a while, Tsunade." It'd be at this point that Orochimaru would begin to start trying to talk, but as this is happening, from the corner of his eye, he could see two cloaked figures, Itachi and Kisame. And seeing Itachi getting closer, Orochimaru and Itachi would both lock eyes instantly, Naruto placing Orochimaru under a Genjutsu world and telling him that if he dares to try to do something to his younger brother, then he'll kill him, ending everything off by telling him that that's his prey and his spare set of eyes. Orochimaru, seeing this in his mind and then remembering the last time they fought, realizing that not only is he here, but Naruto's here, Jiraiya's here, and Tsunade's here, Orochimaru would turn to Kabuto, nodding as the both of them would reverse summon themselves out of there, and we would now be left with Itachi, Kisame, and the squad there. This is when we would most likely get a scene in which they're all staring off against each other and get into fighting stances, but before this could actually end up taking place, I could see the battle ultimately not happening, since we do know that Itachi is secretly with the Leaf, and it's a really good excuse to say that two legendary Sannin facing off against them is something that they don't want to deal with. So the two of them would ultimately disappear as crows would appear in their place, and Naruto, seeing this, would say, "That was," with Jiraiya cutting him off, saying, "That's Sasuke's older brother." Naruto, seeing this, would be stunned that that's the person that Sasuke's been going after this whole time. As turning to the direction of Jiraiya and Tsunade, he would then ask, "So, "What's your move, Granny?" She would look at Naruto ruffling up his hair and saying that she's gonna go back and become the lousy Kage, as Naruto looking to her would have a huge smile on his face knowing that now she's officially gonna always be part of his life. This would leave a huge smile on his face, but as this would be happening, we would most likely see a young Sasuke rushing there out of breath, going, "Itachi!" But seeing Tsunade, Jiraiya, Naruto there, he would ask what happened. Also Shizune's there. But Naruto would go on to say that he missed his older brother. He would go on to tell him that he retreated after seeing these two, and Sasuke hearing that would grit his teeth. He would then end up joining them in their return to the Leaf Village, as we would get an entirely silent Sasuke returning, pretty much thinking to himself that he's pissed at the fact that he didn't get to try out his new jutsu against Itachi. But the more time that he had to pretty much let it simmer, he would then start to realize in his own mind that he was delusional. He never would have beat Itachi. In fact, this entire village is holding him back. However, with that previous encounter between Orochimaru and Itachi, maybe there's a chance that Orochimaru decides not to go after Sasuke in this timeline, just due to the fact that he just got a crazy scare from Itachi, who practically promised to come after him if he hears anything about Orochimaru and Sasuke. So I doubt the dude wants to die right now. So instead of the Sound 4 Genin stuff happening or Sasuke even running off with them, we would entirely skip that arc, but we would most likely end up still having a battle between Sasuke and Naruto. However, due to the fact that Naruto does have the strength to match up against a Sasuke who in this timeline does not have the Awakened Curse Mark, does not have Stage 2, and also does not have the other experiences that led him to be as strong as he was in volume 27 of the manga, there's just no way that he's able to even pose a challenge to Naruto, which would ultimately lead to an angered Sasuke pretty much telling Naruto that he's not growing in this village. He would be desperate for strength, and it'd be at this moment that Naruto, having defeated Sasuke, would extend a hand out to him, telling him that if he needs help, he knows 2 pairs of good Sannin that could help out. So Sasuke hearing that would turn to Naruto, as he would realize that he's serious. With Naruto and the 2 legendary Sannin's help, he could get stronger. So Naruto would ultimately genuinely introduce Tsunade to Sasuke, or no, formally introduce, that's the word I'm looking for, as Sasuke would now undergo training under Lady Tsunade as well as Naruto. And we would have the group remaining in the village for approximately 3 more months most likely, which would be more than enough time for Naruto and Sasuke to begin their own training and start to learn the ins and outs of the actual, healing ninjutsu and stuff like that. More specifically, the 100 ceilings technique, which practically grants them immortality for a limited amount of time in order to store their chakra. So this would be the point where Naruto would develop that technique much faster than Sasuke does, just because he has such a massive chakra pool that his diamond on his forehead would form faster. And after this would take place, Naruto would leave the village with Jiraiya, going off for his own training time skip. Instead, Sasuke would end up becoming the healer of the group, Naruto not deciding to ultimately go down that path, but instead focus on the training that he can do with Jiraiya for a bit, then come back and learn the rest. So as Sasuke would focus on his training with Tsunade, we would have Sakura, who remaining in the village with Sasuke would grow stronger thanks to her not wanting to fall back against him, and would probably have a couple of training sessions with Tsunade. So she might know a little bit of medical ninjutsu here and there, but her main focus would definitely continue being genjutsu prowess and kind of being more of a Kurenai type shinobi, whose real asset to the team would essentially just consist of genjutsu, which is kind of funny considering that Sasuke has even better genjutsu than hers, just because of the fact that he has the Sharingan. He would also remain in the village and train alongside Kakashi, which means that he would still develop the same techniques that he would have with Orochimaru, meaning that once Naruto would return from his training time skip, having definitely learned some sort of Sage Mode, just because Naruto's more than aware of the fact that that exists, Naruto would return with the newly awakened Slug Sage Mode, not the one that Jiraiya has, because Naruto's capable of more than reverse summoning himself back. Naruto's taijutsu skills would have definitely been upkept. Naruto would decide that now, instead of fighting with little scalpel knives, he's actually going to focus on fighting with a blade. So yeah, Naruto was more of a Kenjutsu specialist in this timeline, and he definitely would develop techniques such as the Rasengan and the Big Ball Rasengan, maybe even the Rasen Shuriken. So with that being said, we would finally get the end of the time skip happening when the village would end up pretty much seeing Naruto return, and we would end up getting that same scenario in which once he comes back, we would get a meeting between Sakura and Sasuke with Naruto. The meeting would be very short, but kind of sweet, and then we would end up getting the next moment, which would essentially consist of the bell test, just to see how far they've come. However, once Naruto would tap into Sage Mode, which would obviously be the Slug Sage Mode transformation, Sasuke would pretty much end up awakening his Sharingan and then tapping into his own curse mark form, which he doesn't have the awakened version but the normal one. We would then end up seeing the both of them plus Sakura, who in this timeline doesn't have her monstrous punches, but she does have her genjutsu, pretty much start to create illusions, leading to Kakashi being cornered and the bells both being taken from him via Naruto and Sasuke. They would probably cross paths with each other, grabbing the bells and smiling, as the team would then form once more as the official Team 7. After this would happen, we would then end up having the Sand Village arc take place. As the team being assigned on this mission, we would have them go underway. On their way there, they would once more, much like they would in their first arc, be attacked by some random bandit type ninjas. However, in this moment, Naruto and Sasuke would continue walking, as the two ninjas would have been placed under a genjutsu via Sakura, both passing out unconscious, thinking that they had gotten killed by the two of them. And as they would make their way to the village, they would discover that Kankuro had been heavily injured thanks to Sasori's poisons. This is when Sasuke, using his medical ninjutsu prowess with some help from Sakura and even Naruto because he knows some basics, would all end up healing Kankuro back to health, ultimately taking Lady Chiyo with them and going on to face off against Sasori and Deidara. This is when the team would bust in using Naruto's monstrous strength to destroy the boulder at the door, and once this would happen, a massive explosion would go off, which leaves enough room for Deidara to go flying off with his clay bird. However, before he could even make it out, this is when Sasuke's pretty much lightning stream Chidori would end up hitting the bird and disarming it. This would lead him to falling down rapidly, and as Deidara would do so, he would throw out a ton of Kekkei Genkai explosions, which would go off, leaving a huge smoke screen for him, creating another clay bird as he would fly off to the direction of trying to make his escape. But Sasuke, using his hawk, would actually proceed to fly after him, and we would then get the iconic Sasuke versus Deidara fight, which would still be a one-on-one. The rest of the team would remain here, with Kakashi confident that Sasuke could handle his own, as the rest of them would actually be responsible for taking on Sasori. Naruto would just think, can't believe Sasuke's hogging all the glory. This is when Naruto, leaving two shadow clones nearby, would both end up charging some Slug Sage chakra, as Naruto would tap into the form, and a weird bluish weird looking, it almost kind of looks like the Tensegon aura would surround Naruto. This is when he would, turning towards the direction of Sasori, blitz towards him using the monstrous strength provided by it, as he would absolutely shatter the Heroku puppet, sending him crashing into the wall. This is when thousands of puppets coming out would all try to attack at their directions. However, Lady Chiyo, being there using her own 10 puppets, would actually begin countering them, as Kakashi, using his kunais and jutsus, would end up actually countering them as well, and with Sakura using her genjutsu specialty against Sasori, would distract him for just a split second, leading Naruto to rush in directly at Sasori and punch him so hard in the chest, this would ultimately cause the entirety of the puppet to blow up into multiple pieces. They would ultimately defeat Sasori, and once the team would be done with this, Naruto would rush to Gaara, shaking his body going, wake up, Gaara! But when he's not waking up, the situation would grow tense, until finally, Lady Chiyo would lay down her life for the Kage. While simultaneously, we would have Sasuke disarming Deidara's C0 bomb, and ultimately a massive explosion would be felt throughout the area, with Deidara being convinced that this was the only way to defeat the Uchiha standing before him. However, Sasuke, using the 100 healings jutsu during this battle after multiple explosions would have begun to wear him down, would actually be able to regenerate entirely from that explosion with a couple of injuries. But with that being the case, they would return back to Konoha, where they would brief Tsunade on how well the mission went. Kakashi would say that honestly, this three-man team might just be the greatest three-man squad that the village has ever had. They just handled Akatsuki level threats with ease. Tsunade hearing this would be very proud of Naruto and the rest of the squad, her having been very close with each and every single one of them, as she would thank them and proceed to pretty much just pay them handsomely. This is when suddenly, the squad would end up seeing a messenger pigeon flying into the room, as dropping off a letter to Tsunade, it would inform them that Asuma had died to two Akatsuki members, Kakuzu and Hidan, and Team 10 was headed back to the village to regroup and try to launch another attack against the Akatsuki members. This is when we would get the whole section of the story where Naruto originally would learn the Rasen Shuriken, but due to the fact that he's already done that in this timeline, we would actually get the three of them and Kakashi all ready to go handle this mission. They would say to simply leave the Akatsuki team to them, with Shikamaru insisting to go with them. So we would ultimately get Shikamaru formulating a plan to defeat Hidan, with Sasuke going with him in order for the plan to go off smoothly, as Naruto in this timeline would be the main focus to handle Kakuzu. I could see him and Sakura working in tandem, with Sakura using a genjutsu to throw off Kakuzu's sense of not direction, but sense of how far something is. You know how if you look at something, you can see it look closer, his perspective, his sense of perspective. This would lead Kakuzu to believing that Naruto was much further than he actually was, so as Naruto would get closer and closer and Kakuzu would believe himself to have enough time to dodge, this is when suddenly he would snap out of it, but it would be too late. Naruto, having used Sakura's assistance with the genjutsu, would slam the Rasen Shuriken into Kakuzu's chest, absolutely demolishing the dude like he would in the original, with the other little heart clones that he has nearby being defeated by Kakashi. With that being said, Hidan would easily die thanks to Shikamaru's plan, and once they would return to the village, Sasuke, getting a messenger crow from Itachi, his older brother, would read the note telling him that it's time. This would lead to Sasuke making his way to Tsunade's office immediately and requesting a favor. He would ask for Team 7 to accompany him in order for him to finally kill his brother. And Tsunade, having been with Sasuke for all these years, knowing how much this means to him, would tell him that she's gonna allow this mission. But she would add one caveat, telling them that they are not allowed to lose under any circumstances. Sasuke in this moment would smile, saying that he wouldn't dream of it, as his little cube on his forehead would form, and he would end up turning to Tsunade, telling her that it's not gonna happen. This is when they would end up leaving, and we would end up getting the entirety of the team facing off against Itachi and Kisame. Now, obviously, because Sasuke is the one 1v1ing Itachi with new things under his arsenal, obviously, he has the 100 healing jutsu, he has the monster strength thanks to Tsunade now under his bag, and he still has a curse mark, however, not to the extent that he had before. I think this would even things out, and ultimately the battle between him and his brother would probably remain the same, with him still using Kirin and all of that. However, on the flip side, we would have Kisame having to face off against some of the most formidable shinobis on the planet, Kakashi and Naruto, with Sakura in the background attempting to use her genjutsu to help out, but thanks to the high-level shinobi that Kisame is, her genjutsu would practically be nullified by him. So, he facing off against Kakashi and Naruto, taking them extremely seriously, would try to decapitate Naruto as quickly as possible, but Naruto dodging out of the way, then embedding both fists into the ground, would pretty much leap off of them, then kicking Kisame, sending him straight to Kakashi, who would weave hand signs for a high-level fire-style jutsu. This attack would not land on Kisame, but would actually work on a clone, which causes it to burst into water, shocking Kakashi, who, looking away for a split second, would then have Samehada come at him, as it would cut him right on the cheek, then gashing him right on the connecting tissue with your chest and your arm. This would leave Kakashi to hold himself and stare at Kisame, as an air of seriousness would fill the area, and Naruto, wanting to get his get back immediately, would then use calm Kamui on him, his Mangekyo Sharingan appearing as he would snipe his arm off much like he would have done to Deidara. Sasori or Kisame being put on the back foot thanks to this would end up being like, what? How do you? As Naruto rushing in out of nowhere, Sage Mode now being activated, would punch Kisame one good time as a hole would be punched straight through Kisame's torso and blood would begin pouring out. Kisame would smile to the direction of Naruto as he would tell him, "Good job, boy." He would then fall to the ground as suddenly Team 7 making their way to the direction of Sasuke, seeing the aftermath of the battle, would watch on as Sasuke would be approached by a man in an orange mask. This is when the four of them would actually begin to match up against Obito, and thanks to Kakashi's presence like they would have in the war arc, once the battle would start, Kakashi would go on to link the fact that this must be Obito, and calling him out on said fact, he would proceed to essentially go to the Kamui dimension much like he would in the original, leading to the Kakashi versus Obito fight, which in this timeline, honestly speaking, I could probably see Kakashi losing in this timeline, because remember, the only reason that Kakashi had won in the original was because Obito had planned for Kakashi to skewer his heart, which is where Madara had placed a seal on him to not be able to betray him or whatever it was. I think that's what I heard in a random Naruto analysis video, not too sure, but regardless, Kakashi loses in this timeline, leading him to be on the ground in a bloody pool and ultimately leading to an Obito versus Naruto and Sasuke. The two of them using their 100 healings techniques in sync would both attempt to stand up to Obito, however, their inability to hit him would be their downfall, and with Sakura trying her best to heal the two of them, Obito ultimately lunges at her and would pretty much Kamui her head away. This would kill Sakura before the both of them, who losing their cools would go in to attack Obito, but this would be just what he wanted. He would kill Naruto right in front of Sasuke's eyes, who seeing this happen would be shocked. This is when Obito would then try to talk some sense into Sasuke, but him not willing to cooperate would lead Obito to killing him as well, as he would say, "Fine, die with this trash," ultimately killing Sasuke in a fashion similar to what Madara would have done. This would then lead to the both of them having an interaction with the Sage of the Six Paths, as both of them would suddenly stand up, having been healed by the power of Hagoromo, and as the two of them stand up, their speed, their strength, and all their attributes being boosted by the Senjutsu Six Paths chakra would proceed to flow through them. Their speed would overwhelm Obito, who wasn't able to remain in the Kamui dimension forever, which ultimately would lead to Sasuke using his Rinne Sharingan to teleport into the Kamui dimension, which frankly speaking, I'm not entirely positive if that's something that Sasuke could actually do, so sorry if I did get this wrong, but the ultimate end to the battle is still the same. Sasuke and Naruto, with these powers in the story, could definitely defeat an Obito who in this time still doesn't even have the Rinnegan, so this would possibly lead to a scenario in which Obito would be killed, but using Izanagi would come back trying to do one last move of defiance to try to survive, but the two of them are just too fast and too strong. Those major power boosts that they get in the end of the series are straight 10 tails level, so Obito wouldn't be able to contend with their newfound speed, and with the two of them using the teamwork that they would use later in Boruto to face Momoshiki, they would defeat the great threat standing before them, as the fourth great shinobi world war would be completely averted, and the true leader of the Akatsuki Pain would remain in the shadows, knowing not to attack Konoha at the moment, considering the fact that Naruto and Sasuke were there. So however you slice it, this is where What If Naruto Was a Slug Sage would ultimately end. Pain being the final villain left in the shadows would kind of make sense, considering that he's not a goofball, right? Maybe he would ultimately have an encounter with Naruto if Jiraiya is foolish enough to go after the quote-unquote leader of the Akatsuki, which now after confirming that it wasn't truly him, but it was actually Obito, might be averted, but you know, you could still technically have a world in which Jiraiya still, while they're facing off against Itachi and doing all this conflict, would still have gone after the leader of the Akatsuki, which leads Naruto to go to the Rain Village on some revenge type time and with Sasuke, as the two of them would just clobber Pain. They would absolutely destroy him. So however you really want to think the story goes, Pain's defeat is ultimately guaranteed. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know down below in the comments what you guys thought about this video. Leave a like, seeing as it's the best way to support the channel and encourage me to make more videos. Shout out to the person responsible for commissioning this video. I appreciate it, Azuma. But with that all out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, have a lovely day.